Welcome to the Work Trends Podcast, brought to you by Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan M. Bureau. Each episode, I interview really smart people who are reimagining the world of work. Be sure to stay current with all of our insightful podcasts by visiting our page at Talent Culture Work Trends on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And of course, you can listen at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Today, we are joined by Jeff Fettner, Senior Director of Product Management at SAP SuccessFactors. Jeff is a product manager with a proven track record for bringing cloud-based enterprise software to market by applying agile methodologies, making data-driven decisions, managing high-performance teams, and working collaboratively with cross-functional partners. Jeff is an absolute rock star with incredible experience, understanding how HR tech affects the market and how it can improve our daily operations. So we are thrilled to have him here. Welcome to Work Trends, Jeff. What's happening?
Hey, Megan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited for a really fun discussion we're going to have. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's get this party started. So listen, Jeff, we are seeing a big shift from role-based to skills-based talent practices. Why is this movement gaining momentum, and how are organizations gauging skills proficiency?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, roles, as you know, Megan, they're changing quickly. It seems like daily the definitions of roles are changing, but skills have really become that true currency of work. When we think about traditional hiring based on degrees and job titles, that really filtered out a lot of great talent. And technology has evolved so fast. I think the pandemic also, if we sort of look back historically, we look at the pandemic even accelerating that shift. You had layoffs, you had early retirements, you had the great resignation, and that created these talent gaps that just couldn't be filled by credentials alone. So organizations, started asking, well, let's just see what people can actually do instead of just looking at their resume. And I think that's in part what really accelerated those skills-based practices, opening up those really large talent pools, which then in turn increased internal mobility. And so folks in organizations, employees started realizing, gosh, I can move laterally. I don't have to stay in my own lane. I can grow my capabilities, sharpen my skills instead of just chasing a title. And organizations, of course, thought, well, gosh, this is also pretty cost effective. Let's just develop our internal talent instead of always going out to the market and hiring externally. And that's the historical look back. Now organizations are wrestling with, gosh, we're entering an increasingly AI-centric world, and it's just shifting and changing everything. What does it look like in the future? And I think skills become even more critical. It's just a different set of skills. And that's some of the conversations I've been having with customers. And the constant refrain keeps coming up. I'd be curious to find out what you've been hearing as well. But it's sort of this triad of skills. We've got to have folks that are skilled in creativity, got to be critical thinkers, leadership, and then they need that technical skill base. They need to be, literate in AI and understanding the mechanics of AI. And then that third piece is the organizational knowledge, governance, regulatory skills. Those things really matter. But I'd love to get your thoughts. What do you think?
My gosh, Jeff, where to begin, right? This is a topic, and you're right, the pandemic, the great resignation, it's a topic that's been gaining steam for quite a while. And one of the things that perhaps makes you a rock star here in the talent culture community is that the way you broke it down for us. You're right. Things happen for a reason, but it's never one reason. There's always context, and one of them is historical. So I think we're off to a great start, and I want to kind of unpack a couple more things with you, and then we'll get to why, my thing on personalization, why it's so important. So if you're out there and, I've got listeners here who may be hearing this term for the first time, okay? Let's go into what exactly is performance and goals agent, right?
Yeah.
And how is it improving personalization, data summarization, and the overall quality of performance discussions, right? That's
Mhm.
what I want to unpack next. And then we'll talk feedback. We'll talk, right? Like that whole thing of like employees want more meaningful feedback. What does that mean? Right?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you teed it up at the beginning of the podcast, talked about being data driven. And we, when we set out to build our first agent, the first question is, well, what's the acute problem we're looking to solve? There's many, of course. There's never just one problem within organizations. But one of the constant refrains we heard from organizations, from customers, from users is just the time it takes to prepare for performance discussions. So I manage 6 people. They all sit in Shanghai. That's like 6,000 plus miles away. Not an easy thing to manage individuals when they're that far away, much less, just even, within arm's reach, right?
I was going to
So
say, they could be next door to you as well.
yeah, it's
In a
just as
cube.
exactly. The challenge doesn't go away because of geography. And so, we set out to think, well, how can an agent actually get its arms around this problem? And so we built an agent with that problem in mind. And, for your listeners, if this is the first time you're hearing this, the Performance and Goals agent is designed to help managers prepare quickly and effectively for these discussions. So it does a great job of tapping into rich talent data. So if you think about best practice, I get asked, Jeff, what's the best practice for talent? And I say, well, it just depends on, what your goals are. But generally, you want to create this culture of feedback. That's how people typically grow and get better at what they do is you have a culture of giving and requesting feedback. You have
Yeah.
some goals, maybe have a couple of check-ins, do a mid-year review every once in a while. And the benefit of the agent is it uses its reasoning capabilities to give dynamic answers to managers' questions. So if I can go and ask the agent, help me prepare for my upcoming performance discussion, it's going to go into its toolkit and pull out what it believes are the best responses based on the amount of data it has access to. So that's continuous feedback and goals and mid-year reviews. And what's kind of nice about this, so we set out on the AI journey, years ago, and we took an embedded AI approach. This is when, LLM started to become
Mm-hmm.
really in vogue, late 2022. And then the agentic craze started happening. And the beauty about the agent is it's this non-deterministic approach. So, you can ask the question, it just is so easily adaptable and responsive to questions as opposed to following a more predetermined script. So we're excited. You can tell by my
Yeah,
energy
no, for
level
sure.
without coffee. Yeah, I'm excited and
Really?
hyped up
No
about
coffee?
early on in the day, Megan, coffee, but I'm a one cup
Surprised.
a day kind of guy. So I don't really,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
I gotta watch my caffeine intake sometimes.
You've got that. And sometimes I go for the second, Jeff. Sometimes it happened today for me. So, but I got to tell you, talk about this conversation. Let's talk about meaningful feedback because it's so critical at every stage of anybody's career. I don't care if you're a manager, you're an employee, you're the CEO. I strongly believe any technology that can improve this process and also tackle positively impacting morale, retention. That's a biggie for me, and the overall success of teams and organizations. So, help us connect the dots a bit further. How does new technology seamlessly translate performance data, especially skills evaluation, into actionable development recommendations? And why is this connection such a red hot topic right now, Jeff?
Yeah,
What's
I think it's
going
a
on?
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on, but yeah, I mean, I think, and not that this is going to come as a galloping shock, but I think one of the ways we've seen technology driving change, of course, is you guessed it, AI. And I sort of think about this as a share with you kind of an interesting anecdote. About a year and a half ago, we set out to transform our performance management experience, and we do a lot of listening. We go on listening tours with customers, and I remember a customer sort of jokingly mused to me at one point. They said, "Jeff, can you just give us a button that if we were to press it, just summarizes everything and gives us recommendations about someone's performance and where we should go?" And I paused and I said, "Yeah, we could do that," without giving any details. I didn't want to give away the secret sauce, but so it's an example of what we did in our product. So we built this performance insight tool, and the beauty is it doesn't just look back. It doesn't just evaluate performance, but to your point, to your question, it's looking at skill gaps. So it might go into all of that rich talent data and identify, okay, this person's not particularly adept at delegation. They're okay, but they need to learn how to delegate better, don't we all? And
Mm-hmm.
it recommends actionable steps for improvement. So it helps people skill up and gives managers a path. And we've wired the experience so that those recommendations flow into the employee's development plan. So it creates a nice seamless link between the evaluative process and the development process that typically follows your performance review, period. And we've embedded it in other products in our 360 review. As far as why it's such a hot topic, well, again, there's, as you said, there's always more than one answer to a question. I think organizations, from my discussions, they're under pressure to do more with less.
Yeah.
I don't think they're not hitting the brakes on hiring altogether, especially
No.
for some harder to learn skills. But I think when you get into these challenging economic times, the first instinct is let's look inward. Let's see if we can upskill some of our existing talent faster and in a more cost-effective way, and keep those employees engaged.
I mean, I see these as very interesting insights. I love the growth that we're seeing in this area too. And remember the days, everyone, when feedback didn't include I mean, zilcho data, like nothing. It wasn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
then, Jeff, to strategically use those data driven insights and provide actionable next steps, that's a game changer.
it is. It is.
Let's be real.
Yeah, yeah. And I give product demos a lot, and I try to keep it playful. And I always demonstrate our feedback tool, and I usually start out by writing something along the lines of, be less boring or be more engaged. So three words, and then I tell, I interact with the crowd. And I say, look, do you think that's going to help anyone improve? And invariably everyone shakes their head no. I said, well, okay, but what if you had AI to actually help improve that language? What if someone is not as adept as someone else at giving actionable feedback? And so we sort of embedded some of those contextualized or moments into some of our AI capabilities. It's really just offers these teachable moments for people who otherwise wouldn't have gotten the training on how to give feedback. I never went to a class on how to give effective feedback.
Yeah, you just learn by doing, and
Exactly.
hint everybody out there, right? I mean, a lot of organizations are investing in a truly connected talent suite. How do tools like People Intelligence in the broader SAP SuccessFactors ecosystem help leaders move from performance snapshots to a much more holistic view of growth, potential, and future skills needs?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, sort of our running theme here, at least one of them, is around data. And when I've spoken to leaders, of all stripes, they all say to me, look, we don't have the option for blind spots anymore. I mean, we never really had the option for that, but it's just becoming so critical. With skills as the currency, they need data, they need intelligence, and that's what People Intelligence is really about. It helps to eliminate those blind spots, and it sits on top of our business data cloud and looks at this harmonized set of data so that leaders can tell these rich, compelling stories. So they're not dealing with static performance snapshots anymore. Instead, they get a really rich, full picture of growth, potential, future skills. And what's really cool about this is, and it came out late last year, it's giving individuals the ability to see correlations between performance and other input variables like learning and upskilling. My manager often says to me, Jeff, you got to think about what, the data that's connected, or think about things
Hmm.
that everything's connected. And that always plays in my mind when we're thinking about building a feature. Never have anything siloed. There's always connectivity between one domain and another. And that's the beauty of People Intelligence. It just cuts across these domains and can answer those questions like, well, which training is going to close the critical skill gap? Some CLO out there's got to justify that spend on learning. And
Oh yeah.
right. And this is the kind of thing that People Intelligence can do. And that's just one of many, many questions you can ask. And it's pretty exciting. I think the potential is there to really help leaders get that holistic picture that they've been waiting for, and again eliminate some of those blind spots they've been struggling with for many years.
Always moving the needle there over at SAP. And I got to tell you, this is great information. As HR leaders explore new technology, understanding how this integration actually works, super helpful. Like, sorry, but we're not connecting dots if we don't understand why.
Yeah.
So, we know turnover remains a huge concern for leaders around the world. Talk about how these advances in AI and performance technology support the goal of reducing voluntary turnover and truly valuing talent for their lasting contributions.
You said it earlier. There's always multiple dimensions to a particular problem, right? So turnover, and it comes down to feelings of underpaid, undervalued, overwhelmed, or some combination of all three. And I think AI has some really interesting potential to help us move from sort of reacting to attrition to even predicting and preventing it from occurring. And I was reading something not too long ago. It was an article showing a Fortune 500 tech company. They actually saw that 40% reduction in employee turnover by implementing continuous performance or continuous feedback practices.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it gets back to your other point about, when you have embrace those technologies, embrace those practices, it can move the needle. It can actually have a positive impact on lowering your attrition. And what was interesting, sort of getting back to the point we mentioned earlier, when we've gone out and we've done our listening tours and talked to customers that have implemented these practices, the struggle, as you said before, for some has been ensuring that feedback is actionable. And every single time we design an experience, we embed technology, like AI into the fabric. One of the things we love to think about is intentionality. It's like one of my favorite words, not because it's, multisyllabic, but it's just a fun word to say. But I talked to some of our UX leaders too, and they love the idea of intentionality and showing up as the mental aboutness behind every user action. It's really, really some cool stuff. You can geek out on that, but they do it because their actions are about achieving something. So we knew that when people were giving feedback to someone, the question is, how can they improve their intent to help someone get just measurably better? And that's why, again, go back to the point, we included that make feedback actionable. We embedded that into our writing assistant. Even thinking beyond some of the embedded AI, there's still, I think, a lot of potential for AI to lean into so many other areas. Signal detection is another interesting area, spotting burnout.
My sense is this right now is where we just hit the sweet spot. I think retention is a huge word in our industry, and for good reason. But what we're really focusing on here is using technology to improve the culture and employee experience, which is always a win in my book. Breaking news. So I got to tell you, finally, we get to the last question. We have been, time flies when we're having fun.
It does.
As we look ahead, Jeff, how do you see AI reshaping performance management in the next few years, especially when it comes to making these conversations more human, more meaningful, and more development focused?
Yeah, gosh, the 64,000, the $1 million question, the one that keeps me up at night. If I'm going to have a sleepless night, it's usually going to be about, well, how is AI reshaping performance management? I keep searching my home for a crystal ball. I haven't found it yet, Megan. So if you come across one, let me know. Here's what I see, kidding aside. So, I think, and this isn't, again, going to come as a galloping shock either, but, AI, we're going to start to see and have already seen it automate a lot of routine tasks. And I think it has that power to act as a support tool. So we talked about managers and being respectful of managers' time, or rather freeing up managers' time to focus on the things that matter more. And that's impacting growth. And I don't think the future, when we think about the future of performance, it's certainly going to become less about task tracking. It's more going to become around measuring impact. So I think the human in the equation just becomes less the doer and more the conductor, the governor, right? And they get valued and measured on their judgment, their prioritization, which really then connects. We talked about connecting dots. That's why it connects back to those critical skills like critical thinking and leadership, creativity. Those things are going to have such prominence in every organization or many organizations, again, to ensure that AI capabilities align with actual goals. So there's a lot that,
Yes.
gosh, we could probably spend an entire podcast on that one topic. But I think the other thing too, when we think about the future, you talked about making the conversations more human, more meaningful. What was interesting, so Mercer I was looking at this the other day, Mercer put out a study, and it said managers feel overextended as they attempt to deliver against this widening scope of responsibility. And they have too many direct reports to do personalized performance management. So I think that's where we're going to start to see AA having a greater impact. So it frees up managers. They're going to have more time to have more meaningful, more development-focused discussions. Then I think we're going to also start to see AI leaning into productivity data and maybe even starting to detect signals, challenges people are having in the workplace, surfacing opportunities for recognition, maybe increasing psychological safety even across organizations.
Much needed, right?
Yeah.
Much
so employees,
needed.
They feel the ability to embrace struggle as an opportunity, which is counterintuitive. You wouldn't think, oh, I'm going to embrace struggle, but struggle can be a good thing.
It's
right?
real.
It's real. And, I think people have to be less fearful of struggle and, again, see it as an opportunity to grow. And all roads do, of course, seem to lead back to skills. So, yeah, I think AI is going to handle a lot of the noise so that managers can really start focusing on what is driving performance. So again, at the end of the day, hopefully creating that meaningful, human-centric type of conversation.
Very, very insightful. I am excited to see how this area of HR tech will continue to shape our industry. I'm grateful for leaders like you, Jeff, who really understand where we've been and where we're headed. This is super exciting stuff. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I love learning something new in each and every episode. Just a reminder that you can listen to all of the Work Trends podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and the podcast page at talentculture.com or your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to subscribe so you can listen on the go and stay up to date on all the latest news you want to hear. I look forward to catching up with y'all next time. And I hope today's information made you wiser, happier, more informed, and most importantly, thinking of how you can use it to improve the quality of your career, your life, and your world of work.